Hey YouTube, it's Charlie from Reader Turned Writer, and today I just wanted to talk about how my TBR list went in 2020. I do have my bullet journal here and I'm going to be referencing it. Here's my page. I was able to read 34 of the 36 books on my TBR list, so I'm just going to go through and tell you what I rated each one and which ones I DNF'd. I'm just going to go from top to bottom. I read The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna in September. I listened to it, I liked the audiobook, and I rated this one 4 stars. I liked it, but I didn't love the pacing. It felt a little bit too long to me, but I did really like the actual story. And I like Kristen Hanna's writing style. I DNF'd The Home for Unwanted Girls by Joanna Goodman in June. This was one that I was really looking forward to. I think it is one that I would probably like. It's just at the beginning it has a scene that's just a little bit too explicit with sex, and I was reading reviews to see, if it got better after that or not. And they were talking about a rape scene, and I just decided that it wasn't exactly for me because I'm a little bit picky about content like that. In October, I read Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. This is like a World War II historical fiction about a boat that sinks, kind of like a Titanic type story that was actually on a bigger scale than Titanic, but hardly anyone talks about it. I rated it 4 stars, and I did really like it. It was very heartbreaking, hard to read. It did have some stuff in it that was really hard to learn about and just sad to think about, but I feel like it was also a really good one to help you think about other people and just learn about the past. I read or listened to I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai, and this is a memoir. I read it in September. I rated it 3 stars. I did not rate her life 3 stars. I definitely think that her life is amazing. I think that what she is standing up for and working for is super great. I think she is a super strong person. The book kind of focused on things that I wasn't as interested in versus some of the things that I would have liked to hear more about, and was a little bit meandering to me, and so it was harder to keep my interest, and that's why I rated it 3 stars. But I definitely think that her story is an important one, and I hope that she is doing well and that she can continue fighting for the things that she believes in. In November, I read The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, and I rated this 3 stars. The atmosphere was really well done, the writing was well done. It's not really my kind of book. It's very atmospheric. I didn't care for most of the characters. I didn't love the ending of the book either, certain parts of it. And there were some things, like especially with like The Walking Dead in it and stuff, that kind of bothered me a little bit, and that's why I kind of rated it lower. I read All That Makes Life Bright by Josie Kilpack in December, and I loved this book. I rated it 5 stars. It looks at Harriet Beecher Stowe's early married life and early parenthood life. And so like right when she's first married and right when they first have children, and kind of her struggle to balance motherhood and parenthood and being a wife and homemaker with trying to also be creative and be able to find time to write and different things. It doesn't focus as much on like slavery or any other aspects of her life, but I loved it. I felt it was very relatable as a mother. Especially a mother who struggles to find time to do YouTube and writing and just my own creative pursuits. And I thought it was fantastically done. I cried through a lot of it, and I really loved Hattie. That's what they call her in the book, is Hattie. I read Hum If You Don't Know the Words by Bianca Moraes in July, and I absolutely love this one as well. I rated it 5 stars. I cried. I loved the characters. I thought it was so captivating, and it is set in South Africa, so it was like a diverse read and helped me learn about other people and the struggles that they go through and racism and things like that, and I just thought it was so brilliant, and I highly recommend it. I'm gonna read this one because the title's long. Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, The Story of Little Women and Why It Still Matters by Anne Boyd Rio. Long title. And I rated this 4 stars. I thought it was really interesting. I didn't read it as a child, so I don't have a lot of nostalgia around Little Women, but I still like the book, and I thought that the history of it was really interesting. It was a little meandering, a little bit long, and that's why I did 4 stars. There were quite a few lists that I kind of skimmed through, but for the most part it was really interesting. I learned a lot, and I appreciate Little Women a little bit more now. I read Just Jane by Nancy Moser in May, and I rated this 3 stars. It wasn't a bad book, it just wasn't super interesting the whole time. It was kind of slow moving, and I don't know, something about it didn't really click for me. It's kind of like a biographical fiction that looks at Jane Austen's life, but like it's a YA, and it was okay. I listened to Where Am I Now by Mara Wilson, and it is narrated by Mara Wilson. She is the actress who played Matilda as a child as well as in other movies, and it was a memoir just talking about, you know, her childhood and some different things, and I rated this 3 stars as well. It was really interesting to me to read it, and I really loved some parts of the book, like when she was talking about the filming of Matilda. That was really interesting, and I loved the movie even more because of it. I loved her when she talked about her relationship with her mom and how hard it was to go through when her mom died and different things, but there was just so much focus on things that I didn't really appreciate, not because she's a child star, but just because I don't like reading about it. Things like sex and different things like that. There was just such a huge focus on it that it kind of put me off the book a little bit. And she also talked heavily about certain things that were just not quite what I was wanting to hear about. Well, I mean, it's her memoir, she can talk about whatever she wants, but that's why I rated it 3 stars. It just was not as interesting to me in certain parts, and there were certain aspects of it that I felt were so focused on things like sex that it made me uncomfortable. I read Caroline, A Little House Revisited by Sarah Miller in May, and I loved this book as well. I rated it 5 stars. It's a little house on the prairie, the book where they move from the big woods to, I think, Kansas, from the perspective of Caroline, and I just related to this so much as a mother. I loved seeing just the mindset and the thoughts and the emotions that Caroline was having. It made me really grateful to be a mother nowadays instead of back in the pioneer times, and it just made me really excited to be a mother and homemaker again after reading it. I loved Caroline's mindset even when it was hard. It inspired me. I read Pretty Little Liars by Sarah Shepard in July, and I rated this 2 stars. I did not really like it very much. It does not wrap up the mystery in the first book, and the series is like 17 books long, and the book felt kind of shallow to me. The characters did not have the depth that I was expecting after reading some of her other books that I really liked, and there was also a high focus again on things like sex and immorality, and that really put me off, and so I'm not going to continue the series. I kind of looked up the spoilers for the end of the series, and I thought it was kind of trite, kind of a little bit silly or dumb. So I was just like, yeah, it's not my favorite book. But I do like The Perfectionist and The Good Girls by Sarah Shepard, and I felt like it did not have as much immorality in it. The characters had a lot more depth, and the mystery was really good and had a really good plot twist at the end. So I highly recommend those 2 books. I don't recommend Pretty Little Liars. In January, I read Everyone's an Alien, if you're an alien too, but it like is spelled with like random letters throughout, like alien is ALIEBN. I'll put it here so you can see. By Johnny Sun. At the time I rated this 4 stars, but I actually think looking back now I'd probably rate it 3 stars just because it's not very memorable to me. All I remember about it is that it's kind of like a feel-good book, like with inspirational quotes and stuff with pictures in it. It was just like okay to me. In October, I read Illuminae by Amy Kaufman, and I really liked this one. I rated it 4 stars, and I thought that the format was really interesting. At times, because it's told all through like documents and stuff, it's like a sci-fi told through documents, that's its hook. And I felt at times that the documents really enhanced the storytelling for me, and at other times I was kind of lost and felt like I had to like figure out what was going on instead of just reading, and I didn't enjoy that as much. So it was kind of but there were other times when I was like, yeah, this really makes it's really enhancing the experience right now to have it be through documents. I am excited to read the sequel. I read Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover, and I rated it 2 stars, and I might actually, even looking back, knock it down to 1 star, which would be crazy. But I did not like this book, and I kind of have a rant review of it on Goodreads, so you can go read that if you want, but I just did not like the relationship in it at all. It drove me crazy, and so then the whole book I was just bothered by it, by the relationship and the mindset around attraction and stuff, and I was just like, I couldn't handle it. So yeah, you can go read more about that if you want. I'm not going to go into it here because otherwise I'll start ranting. I read Leia, Princess of Alderaan by Claudia Gray. I rated this 2 stars as well. It was kind of your typical YA sci-fi book, but it was also kind of meandering and boring at parts, and it honestly didn't feel like a Star Wars book. It didn't feel like she was Leia, and so all of that combined just kind of made it not a great experience for me to read it. I wouldn't recommend it even if it wasn't a Star Wars book, but because it was, then it was even worse, because it was like, this doesn't feel like Leia, and this is not the backstory I would envision for her. There was like a YA romance in there, and I was like, I don't think Leia was supposed to have had a romance before. I mean, I guess, I don't know if it's canon, if this book is canon, but it just bothered me. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that one either, but I read The Stars We Steal by Alexa Dunn in May. Oh, I read The Princess of Alderaan in June. I don't know if I said that. Not that it matters, but so The Stars We Steal, I rated 3 stars. It is like a space retelling, sci-fi retelling of Persuasion, and I really like the retelling. The plot, I felt like the book was slightly too long. I felt like it could have been tightened up a little bit. There were times when I was a little bit bored. But overall, I felt like it was well done and fun, and I would recommend it. I do want to read more by Alexa Dunn, and I love her YouTube channel. I read Furthermore by Tahara Mafi. I'm sorry, I have no idea how to say that. I always butcher names on this channel. But I read that one in August. I rated it 2 stars. It just wasn't really for me. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't for me. It reminded me a little bit of Alice in Wonderland or A Wrinkle in Time. It really reminded me of A Wrinkle in Time because there was a very heavy emphasis on world building and like traveling through the world so we could see all of the places without a lot of purpose, while the end purpose is to find the father, but then it just feels like it's just so meandering to me, and the world building doesn't cut it for me. Like, I am very much someone who needs a tight plot with purpose and character growth and everything behind the world building, like Brandon Sanderson does a lot. But the world building alone is not enough for me, and the atmosphere is not enough for me. So it just wasn't for me. But I could see someone enjoying it if they really like cool worlds, and it's the characters are kind of fun. It's middle grade with some interesting concepts that it explores. I read A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab in November, and it was my first V.E. Schwab book, and I did really enjoy it. I was a little bit worried because it's obviously a darker shade of magic, so I was like, is this going to be like a dark book? And then there's like blood magic in it, so I was like, oh no. But I felt like she didn't make it really gruesome or like too much for me, and the magic system was really interesting. I liked the characters, especially the way that they interacted with each other. And I'm really excited to read the rest of the trilogy and try some other V.E. Schwab books because I did really like her writing style. I rated it 4 stars, by the way. I read All the Ever Afters by Danielle Teller and I rated it 4 stars. I read it in September, and it is a look at the Cinderella story from the perspective of the stepmother. And it is very, like, the focus is historical. It feels like a historical fiction book when you read it. There's no magic in it. It focuses a lot on the early life of the stepmother before she meets Cinderella, and kind of shows like her background and how she got where she was going. And it does a very good job of showing both sides of like Cinderella and the stepmother, and kind of how the stepmother wasn't evil. It wasn't like a backstory to show how the stepmother got so evil or anything, and I really liked the way that it was handled. I thought it was really interesting, and seeing the connections to the fairy tale were fun, and I thought it was well done. I read Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. Again, I'm sorry for butchering names. I read this in December, and I rated it 4 stars. I really, really liked it. I thought it was a really interesting story. It's obviously a more diverse read and has a lot of parallels to our world and some of the issues that are going on right now, so it can be a really important read. The one thing for me was that it felt a little bit long. There were times when it dragged for me just a little bit, and it was really violent. Like, there were some torture scenes and some violence that did bother me a little bit. I am going to read the sequel still, but if violence bothers you, then this is not a book that you are going to want to read. In February, I read I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, and I rated this 4 stars. This is like a family drama set kind of in older times. I'm trying to remember if it's like the beginning of the 1900s maybe. I really liked it. It follows, the main character is like a writer, and she has some drama with her sister and this guy that she likes and some different things, and is just growing up, and it's really interesting to read. I liked the characters for the most part. I don't think I loved the ending. I'm trying to remember, it's been a long time since February that I read it. But you can go look at my Goodreads reviews if you're interested in any more of these, hearing more about these books. In June, I read Heartless by Marissa Meyer, and this is like a Queen of Hearts. It shows like how the Queen of Hearts became evil, basically story Marissa Meyer wrote the Lunar Chronicles. I liked the Lunar Chronicles more, but I did like Heartless. I don't tend to like negative character arc books as much, but I thought that she did a really good job with making us like the character at the beginning and then later not, you know, seeing how she could turn out the way that she did. Yeah, I think I rated it 4 stars. In September, I read The Ordinary Princess by MMK. This is a really short princess book, and I rated it 2 stars. And looking back, I might even rate it 1 star. Again, like, it just had no plot. And I didn't care about the character. It was very much like old style fairy tale, focused on like morals and stuff, but kind of turning the normal on its head. But I just didn't, there was like no plot at all. And it was so boring to me. And then in the reviews, this made me like crazy. Some of them were like, I love this. And like putting down Ella Enchanted by Gail Kirsten Levine. And I was like, how can you like this more than Ella Enchanted? That actually has a plot. But I digress. That's why we all get to have our own opinions of books, and I just can't read negative book reviews of books that I actually like because it makes me mad. In April, I DNF'd an Undercover Princess by Connie Glein. It was honestly just kind of boring for me. I read about a third of it. I was having a hard time getting through it, so I read reviews to see if it got better at all. And from the reviews, it sounded like it didn't. It actually got worse, so I decided to drop it and move on to other books. In September, I read Princess Ben by Catherine Gilbert Murdoch, and I rated this 3 stars. It was enjoyable, nothing special. There were some issues, I felt like, with the relationship and the way that it developed, but I mean, it wasn't a bad book, and it was not the kind of book that I would be bothered if like my kids read it. I just had things about the relationship that bothered me. In January, I read Marilla of Green Gables by Sarah McCoy. I also rated this 3 stars. This is a look at Marilla from Anne of Green Gables, but like when she was a teenager, so it's like a YA book. And I think I would have really liked it if the Marilla Anne of Green Gables aspect wasn't a part of it, because it was well done and interesting and fun to read. It didn't feel like Marilla to me. I just didn't see, there were times when I was like, yeah, I could see that being Marilla, or how Marilla would be as like a teenager, or a young adult. But a lot of times I just didn't see it, and it didn't feel like Marilla to me, and that negatively impacted the experience for me. In August, I read Snape, A Definitive Reading by Laurie Kim, and I rated this 5 stars. This is a nonfiction analysis of Snape's character throughout the Harry Potter books, and I thought it was brilliant. I will never read the Harry Potter books the same again, and it was just really well done for the most part. In February, I read People Like Us by Dana Melee. And this is a YA thriller that I rated 3 stars, although I remembered rating it 2 stars. Like sometimes I look back and I'm like, why did I rate it that? You know? Or the other thing is, looking back at the books that I read at the beginning of the year, I was like, I read that this year? Because it's like pre-COVID, it feels like a different world or a different time, you know, like it's so weird to think about that. Some of the books I read on a trip with my husband, you know, like it's like so weird to think about that. It just feels so long ago, but it was just this last year. So anyway, People Like Us, I rated 3 stars. It just felt kind of shallow. Like the mystery wasn't bad. I kind of figured out who it was about halfway through, but I didn't know why, so the reveal was still kind of fun for me. But everybody in the book was a bad person, and it really bothered me because everybody was just terrible. Sorry if you can hear my kids. They're awake, all 3 of them right now, and I think they're struggling. In January, I read The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Postone, and this is the sequel to Geekerella, like in the same world but doesn't follow the same people, and it's a Prince and the Pauper like retelling, but they're 2 girls, and so that's why I said princess at first. And I actually really liked it. I did not like it quite as much as Geekerella, but I still thought it was a really fun book. I haven't really read Prince and the Pauper retellings before, and I thought she did a good job with it. In April, I read The Vanda Beakers of 141st Street by Karina Yan Glasser, and I rated it 4 stars. I love the Penderwicks, and so I picked this up hoping it would be similar to the Penderwicks, and it was. I do like Penderwicks more, but I thought that it was a really fun book, and I am excited to continue the series. I read Maisie Dobbs by Jacqueline Winspear in May, and I rated it 4 stars as well. I was really hoping to love this one, but I think I was expecting it to be more mystery, less history, if that makes sense, and it was a big focus on history, and the mystery was kind of slow going. and I don't think I'm going to continue the series because of that. But I did enjoy it, and I think that if you like historical mysteries, that this is a good one to pick up. In March, I read Murder Most Unladylike by Robin Stevens, and I rated this 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's a middle grade murder mystery that takes place at a girls' boarding school, and it's just mostly fun. The mystery is pretty good for middle grade, and I did end up really enjoying it. In February, I read One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus, and I rated this 5 stars. I absolutely loved this one. It has a sequel. I didn't love the sequel as much, but I absolutely loved One of Us is Lying. It's a YA thriller. It takes place at a school, and all of the kids are in the same room when the murder happens, but then they don't know who did it, and someone has to be lying. It's really interesting, and yeah, I thought it was good. The conclusion was not as mind-boggling as I wanted it to be, but it was still good. I read Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson in August, and I rated it 5 stars. I loved it. It's probably one of my favorite thrillers I've ever read. It's an adult thriller about a lady who wakes up every day and she can't remember the past days, but she can like kind of remember her childhood. But then the next day she wakes up, she can't remember the day before. And she starts keeping a journal to try and figure out what's going on, and people are lying to her and stuff. And it's really intense, has a pretty good twist ending, and I thought it was really good. Although the ending drives me crazy because it kind of leaves us hanging. We don't know exactly how she ends up, and I really want to know. And then the very last book on my list was Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. I read this in December. I rated it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I just fell in love with Eleanor. I thought the writing was brilliant. There is some sexual stuff and some swearing in it, but it didn't bother me too much, and I really enjoyed it. So there is my TBR list for 2020. I was able to read most of the books. The ones that I didn't, I'm glad that I didn't try and force my way through. I think that it was good to drop them. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you read in 2020, what was one of your favorite books, or have you read any of these books and loved them? I would love to chat with you in the comments about books and everything. And if you want to follow my reading journey, you can go check out my Goodreads. I post a review for every single book that I read there. I'm also pretty active on Twitter and Instagram. I'll link all of that down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for lots of bookish content with reading and writing. And thank you so much for watching my video. I will see you in the next one.